Hello, welcome back to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. Yeah, I love that title. That's what we're doing, in truth. We're awakening to who we really are, discovering along the way that we've never actually gone off. It simply appears that way, that we've wandered off, had all kinds of adventures and mad flings, some sexy, some extremely painful. One minute you're feeling great, next minute dumpy. Yeah. We've never really gone anywhere. We're awakening to who we are. So, along those lines, we have the myriad spiritual practices that exist in the world. You're following at least one of them, maybe more, or you are looking to follow one. I know this because you're interested in this video, right? And if, in fact, you find yourself in this position of wanting to find a spiritual tradition to practice, then you're really in the right place at the right time. Not necessarily because A Course in Miracles will be something that you follow, but because everything is available with our 21st century technology. Everything, literally. So there has never been a better time than right now to seek. And if you truly are seeking, guess what you do? You find. A Course in Miracles, as Jesus puts it right here in the manual, is just one form of what he calls the universal course. Awakening to Love could be seen as the universal course, enlightenment, awakening, whatever term you wish to apply, whatever term you're comfortable with there. Spiritual realization is a term that people use around the world. Realizing God is another term that people use, whatever it is. That's the universal course. What looks differently are all of the outward manifestations, including the major traditional religions in the world and every other spiritual practice as well. What I like to say on this is there are many doors, and there's never been a better time than right now, today, in the 21st century, to pick one and enter. Or if you pick 27, then enter, but go deep with them. Because it's not enough to simply understand the theory. It's not. It's not enough to simply understand the metaphysics, which I explain here. Jesus explains them to us, right, in A Course in Miracles. I'm simply passing that message along to you. It's not enough to simply understand them. We actually have to put them into practice and apply what we've learned, apply it in our lives so that we experience the results. That's how we develop the trust that we need to continue along the path. It's in the application. It is. It's in the moment to moment, day to day application of what you've learned. That's how you demonstrate to yourself the truth of what you've learned by putting it into practice in your life. So without that, we have loads and loads of theory, don't we? Which is ultimately of limited value. It's important to understand, but let's all understand that it is the application that matters. So here in the manual for teachers, we're on question number 9. And In a very short explanation, Jesus answers for us the frequently asked question: are changes required in the life situation of God's teachers? All right, good question, right? Are changes required in the life situation of God's teachers? If you want to play with the language, does a spiritual teacher have to change his or her life circumstance? Well, not necessarily. That's the quick answer. The deeper answer is what's required in 100% of the cases is a change of mind. That's what spiritual practice and experience is. It's a change of mind. That is certainly required. But in order to have that change of mind, allow that change of mind, you don't necessarily have to go anywhere. One of the common social devices, which is a complete and blatant ego device, a delay tactic, a stalling technique, is to think that you have to have everything a certain way in order to practice your spirituality. You have to have a certain degree. That's a big one in this world, isn't it? You have to have a certain educational background, or you have to have studied under the so-called correct teacher, right? You have to have had X number of years of experience. People treat their own spirituality like they would a job search where they feel internally as though they've got to submit a resume. Really, you've got to submit your CV with references, right? And that's how people treat this and approach this, thinking that, well, I can't do that because I don't live in the Himalayas. I can't meditate because I'm not a Tibetan hermit monk. Neither am I. I've been doing it for over 35 years without ever having traveled in this lifetime to Tibet, by the way. So let that example simply debunk the myth that you cannot practice spirituality because your life situation is a certain way. I would really like you to please consider that your life situation is the way it is because you have particular forgiveness lessons that are presenting themselves to you right now in your life. And as we've said before, you have specific people that your message will reach the best. In fact, there are some people out there in the world right now that will only respond to your presentation of the universal course. You do not, by the way, have to hold yourself out as a spiritual teacher like I do. I'm simply answering the call as it's been presented to me. How will you answer it? Well, that's paragraph 2 of this explanation here. So certainly, life changes are not necessarily required. What's going to happen is if you have to be out of a certain relationship or a certain area or a certain country or town in order to experience what we call growth on the path, you will be instructed on that. You will. You will be told what to do. You will be told when to do it, and you will be given the means to accomplish that. What we're doing on the path is changing our mind. And you don't necessarily have to fly off to Nepal to change your mind, which is really good because can you truly imagine if that were a requirement? We had to come up, first of all, with the money for plane ticket and lodging in Nepal in order to practice spirituality. And we, of course, had to clear our calendars so that this retreat or mini retreat wouldn't interfere with our life responsibilities right here at home. Can you imagine if we actually had to do that? There are people out there, you may be one of them, that treats spirituality in that way. Mañana, mañana. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll do that later. I can't do it right now. Mañana. Am I speaking to you? Good. What's required is a change of mind. You could have that right now on your couch or wherever you're watching this. So, what's going on here is the crux of this is A Course in Miracles teaches us to do something that the world does not teach us. A Course in Miracles teaches us to let go of our own judgment and allow our inner teacher to tell us what to do in every single circumstance without exception, all of them. This takes time. Why? Because we have had the exact opposite drilled into our minds. So you may be watching from, I don't know where, in fact, you're watching this from. I live in the United States. I was born in the United States. So let's use this big target as a perfect example of a society, and you may live in one. I know some of you are from Western Europe, England. We got these values from EU. Now we have since gone off the deep end along with other countries in the world. I'm not going to delve too far into that, but countries that call themselves Western, and actually all of them to some degree, really, because it's all an ego illusion. I mean, what is a country but an idea that we all made up? The US, especially, right? That is most certainly an idea. Now, that idea changes depending on the mind of the perceiver. That's the world of the ego, where we see all kinds of conflict. This society values what we call rugged individualism. So we, not just men, by the way, women too, are raised to be what we're instructed is self-sufficient. In other words, we learn that we have to trust our own judgment, our own ego judgment. We cultivate that and think that we have to know what's best in every situation, that we have to act correctly or we'll be punished by ourselves. We think all of these things, and it's no wonder we're confused. Again, not just the United States here, everywhere, everybody. I mean, really, that's what the world is all about. Self-reliance, apparent self-reliance. So contrast the thought system of A Course in Miracles with the thought system of the world. It's 180 degrees different. It's exactly the opposite. Here, in the thought system of the Holy Spirit, spiritual practice, the universal course, we're instructed. And here in the course, we're specifically instructed to let go of our own judgment and give it over to our inner teacher. We're taught to relinquish our own judgment, which takes time, by the way. That is why we're given time to learn this curriculum. Very few people experience this blinding flash of light. It is, of course, possible, but most of us have a gradual plan of awakening in store for us. You may be walking that actively right now. So, what all of this means is that we're unlearning, we're really changing our mind. And with time, this in fact gets easier. It gets a lot easier and more natural the more you do what? Forgive, the more you extend love, and the more you apply in life situations, in practice here in the world. That is where we learn how joyous, how beautiful, and how easy it actually is to let go of our own judgment and trust in our inner teacher. The world trains us exactly the opposite. So, if you've ever heard, and this is a common saying, that spirituality is really an unlearning, oh, yeah, it is. Learning and unlearning go together. What we're actually learning is more, well, more loving habits. And ultimately, what we discover is that even forgiveness itself is an illusion because ultimately there's nothing to forgive. However, until you realize that, right? Until that point, whenever that may be in time, we don't know. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in 6 minutes, maybe in 27 lifetimes. I don't know. Until that moment comes, this is our work. It's our practice, extending love, forgiving, learning to trust in our inner teacher. And by our practical application of these principles, experiencing the results and truly learning their truth for ourselves. It's in the application, practical moment to moment application, and no need to take that trip to Nepal. Unless, of course, you really truly want to. But it is not necessary for spiritual growth unless you've been specifically instructed to do so. And in that case, your inner teacher will tell you, and you will know. All right. So we're going to continue on here. The next question is, how is judgment relinquished? Well, that may be one or even two videos because there's so much that can be said about that. Just to preface this, and I'll close here, the most effective prayer that you might ever make is a prayer to set all of your judgments aside. This is powerful, to ask for help from your inner teacher to set all of your judgments aside and allow things to be just as they are. Just as they are, not how we'd have them be in our wild delusional fantasies, but as they truly are. Yes, just that. Talk to you soon.